Okay, we're recording. They in the AP exams they test you on the present value of money, and I don't think it's in your book anywhere. I don't think.
Really?
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
No, I don't think it's in there. So some things just aren't in there. So I want to make sure you understand this idea of the present value of money. So I've given you the formula, and I've explained it here. And I've given you a website right here so you can sort of look at, sort of calculate things. I think I actually have a problem I did. Let me look here real quick. I might not have, but I thought I did. Okay, I guess I didn't. Well, okay, that's fine. So what you're going to want to do with this, let me back up here. Well, actually, let's actually start here. Okay, so at the beginning, this isn't the beginning. This is like the second one. The first one is, I'm just checking something here. Let me look down here for just 1 second. Huh. Okay. All right. So I don't think so. There's two. The reason I'm sort of hesitating here is there's two. There's a question here that I don't know if I put on the study guide or not. So I want to make sure I go over it. What you're going to need to be able to do, and I thought I have. It's in here somewhere, but I want to make sure though. So you're going to want to be able to sort of convert currencies, right? So say, for example, you're converting dollars to euros. You're going to be able to, you're going to want to be able to understand what it means if a currency depreciates or appreciates, right? And it's really simple. Yeah. If I could take $1 and buy €1, if that's how it is today, right? And tomorrow, $1 buys €1.5. I'm using an extreme. If $1 buys more euros, which of the currencies became more valuable, the dollar or the euro?
The euro.
If a dollar buys more euros,
so then
the dollar becomes more. So if it changes from 1 to 1, $1 to €1 to 1 to 1.1, and that's usually how it changes. It changes very small, right? So if today is 1 to 1 and tomorrow it's $1 to 1.1 euros, it means a dollar buys a little more of a euro, which means the dollar appreciated, more valuable, appreciated relative to the euro, right? If today $1 buys €1 and tomorrow $1 buys 0.9 euros, it means the dollar devalued, right? The dollar is now buying less euros. So that's just a simple way of looking at it, right? So if one currency can buy more, it's becoming more valuable. If one currency buys less of the other currency, it's becoming less valuable, or it's depreciating as opposed to appreciating. Okay. So the other thing, I don't know if it's in here. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to remember. I did this a while ago, so I'm trying to remember what I was thinking when I did this. Understand the relationship between a country's money supply, the inflation rate, and the relative value of its currency and net exports. Okay. That's numbers. Okay. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to get to that. But before I get to that, I want to talk about if the dollar is going to gain value, or if it's going to appreciate appreciate on the foreign exchange market. What could cause that? Now, this gets into this idea of inflation, right? So if we have inflation, that's going to decrease. Oh, I see. Okay. I'm actually looking at a question in my own mind, trying to figure out what they're getting at. What they're getting at is if prices change, and how we measure a prices a lot of times is through what we call the consumer price index. That's how we actually measure whether we have inflation or deflation. So if prices fall, if the prices in the consumer price index fall, then that's going to make goods in the U.S. more inexpensive or less expensive, which means that foreign countries are now going to want to buy more of our goods. Okay.
Okay.
Which means they're going to demand more dollars. The whole key here is understanding that if our goods are more inexpensive to the world, then that means our exports are going to be more in demand. And in order for us to export goods to foreign countries, those foreign countries must first exchange their currency for our dollars, right?
Okay.
Which means they'll demand dollars, which means that when the demand curve shifts to the right, that pushes the value of our currency up, right? So if our inflation rate goes down, our net exports end up going up, and our currency ends up going up. Okay, does that make sense? There's a lot of cause and effect stuff going on here. Okay, so that's kind of.
So if inflation goes down, then net exports go up, and the value of our currency increases also.
Yes. Which in turn makes our goods more expensive, which makes net exports go down. It gets complicated, but don't worry about it.
Okay.
Because it gets kind of like tug and pull,
Yeah.
But I'm trying to keep this. See, one of the challenges that I have is the curriculum they have for you guys doesn't tell the whole story all the time because it gets complicated. So I know the whole story. So I'm trying to figure out how not to get you guys confused, because it can be very confusing. And sometimes there's not always one right answer. When I was in a graduate school, the joke was, if you're not sure the answer, when the professor asks, you say, it depends. It depends on so many different, and that's always a right answer, Anyway, so let's get to this. I'm just wondering why I did this order that I did. I don't have this in the same order as the question, but that's okay. present value of money. What we're talking about here is that if you are going to save or invest money, right? So the example I give right here is that you want to, in the future, say in a year from now, you want to have $2,000 in your savings. So that's what we call future value, okay? That's what you want. Or cash flow at period one, okay? Either here they're calling it C1, okay? So your cash flow, it's sometime in the future. So we're just calling that cash flow at a period one. So that's your numerator here, okay? And your savings account pays 3% interest annually, okay? That's going to be R, all right? You would do the following calculation. You just plug in this formula to find out the amount you need to start with, your present value. Like, what do you need today that can earn 3% interest for a year, and you'll end up with $2,000, right? And you simply plug in and do the math. And since it's only 1 year, N is 1, right? Because it's just the number of periods. It's just 1 year, so that's just 1. So that doesn't change. So it's pretty simple, and you just end up with the fact that if you started with $1,941.75 and you saved it for a year and it earned 3% interest, you'd end up with $2,000, right? Now,
Yeah.
if you wanted to wait 2 years and you didn't have to have your $2,000 until 2 years from now, then you could start with less, right? Because then you plug in a 2 here for your exponent. N now becomes 2, right? And you end up, and then you find out, well, if I'm willing to wait 2 years for my $2,000, I can start off with, less, 1,885.19, right? And if you go to this website right here, you can have some fun, right? You can plug in. Give it a second here. I think it's going to work. I hope. There should be a formula here. There was. It's being slow. Come on. Hey, Lucy, I see you there. Hey, Mary. Okay, so yeah, there it was. Come on, come back. It's acting strange. Well, here it is. Okay, so say you want to have $1 million. Whoops. Say you want to have $1 million. How many zeros is that? 1, 2, 3, right? And you're going to earn 5%. And you're going to wait till you're 60 years old. So that means you're going to wait about 3 years, right? You could start off with $122,000 and you could earn 5%. And by the time you're 60 years old, you'd have $1 million, right? So the present value of $1 million 43 years from now is 122,000. Cool, huh?
Yeah.
Now, why this is valuable is you can see the difference that changing the rate makes. If the interest rate goes down to 4%, then you can see that you need a lot more to start with, right? If it goes down to 1%, you need more, right?
Yeah.
If you could find something that paid 10% over 43 years, you can start off with 16,000 and end up with $1 million. So you see the difference, the interest rate.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the other thing is it really depends on how long you're willing to wait, right? If you had to have your $1 million in 10 years instead of 43 years, you would have to start off with a whole lot more. See? or even 20 years, right? The 20 years, you'd have to have 148,000 to start off with. That would be your present value. If you were willing to wait 50 years, if you were really young and you didn't have to have it till you're really a little bit older, you would start off with 8,000. So you see how much a difference time makes.
Yeah.
So the lesson here is start saving now. And you don't have to have a whole lot to start off with. And if you save for a long time, it adds up when there's interest, right? This is a 10%. You're probably not going to get a 10%. You'll probably get something like 4 or 5%, right? But still, you know, you go from 140,000 to 1 million if you just wait a long time, right? Anyway, so that's just something that just sort of gives you an idea of how much a difference it makes when you change the rate of return and how long you're willing to wait. Okay, I think that's kind of cool. So that's present value of money, right? Okay, this is the tricky one, right? This is the one I'm going to spend more time on because this is this one right here. Let me find that question. Okay, so one thing you always need to keep in mind that bond prices and interest rates, and I don't know if you remember, but I appointed you guys to a video that really talked about why this is. But when bond prices go up, rates go down, and when interest rates go up, bond prices go down. And I think I just said that when bond prices go down, interest rates go up. They move in opposites, right? So, but this is confusing because it depends on what happens first here. So this question right here is when it just said, okay, when the answer, I'm going to say it like this, when the answer is a increase or a decrease in outflow right here, this is a shift. This is a shift in the curve, okay? When they just say, like, you know, when they say demand goes up or supply goes down, when they say it like that, you're just thinking about a shift, okay? So it's not a movement along the line. It's a shift. Now, why is that important? Well, because it is. So if you look at what I drew right here, and this is something that's not in your books. But this is how you actually understand this, okay? So we have a lower real interest rate. That means that the prices in the country's outstanding bonds will go up, okay? So what we're looking at here, what this graph right here shows is what happens when there's a shift in net capital outflow, right? So when net capital outflow goes down, then it shifts down. See number one right here? A fall in capital outflow means that we have the interest rates will drop, right? And if real interest rates drop, that's going to mean bond prices go up, right? And then what's going to happen is the exchange rate is going to rise because net exports go down. Because when capital outflow goes down, net exports go down, right? If you remember, capital outflow and net exports or exports move in the same direction. Capital inflow, when capital is flowing in, that means that imports are going up or net exports are going down. Okay, so the opposite of what I just said would be if the capital outflow increased, right? And this is the purple line. You're going to get a higher interest rate, and you're going to get a lower price for the country's outstanding bonds, right? So if number one, if the first thing that happened was we had a net capital outflow increase, then the second thing that's going to happen is you have a rise, right, from here up to here, a rise in the interest rates, which means bond prices fall, right? And that increase in net capital outflow is going to increase net exports, which means that the exchange rate actually falls. Okay.
Okay.
So that's how that causes an effect. The key here is that if the answer in the question is an outflow of financial capital, that's the cause. That's the shift that starts. Okay. And why I'm going through that is because if you look at another set of graphs, which I have right here, and you start off with if you start off with a lower real, if lower real interest rates come down, that's going to mean a movement along the line, right? Which is going to cause a different result, okay? Which I'm going to get to that, okay? So it just depends on what happens first, really. So and it can be very confusing, but I want to try to make it less confusing. Okay, so this gets to this graph right here. I believe is going to help us deal with. Let me look right here. What I did right here. I got to remember why I did this, but anyway, let me just jump back. So. Okay, understand how exchange rates affect U.S. citizens traveling or living abroad. Well, obviously, if the dollar becomes more valuable, it's going to help U.S. citizens who are traveling and who are exchanging dollars for whatever currency it is, right? So, if the dollar is appreciating relative to wherever they are, they're going to be better off. If the dollar is depreciating relative to whatever currency, wherever they are, the currency of the country they're in is going to hurt them, right? Because they're going to be able to buy less currency with the dollars that they have. Okay. Let me look here. So understand how foreign investment So this is where. Okay, so foreign investment is a capital capital inflow, right? And that's called. Let me make sure I say it right. I want to make sure. So you've got two accounts. You got the financial account, and you've got the other account that is not coming into my head right now. The current account. Sorry, the current account. The current account is the import-export balance, right? And the current account and the financial account have to zero out, right? So when we're having a capital inflow, that means our financial account is going up and our current account is going down. Why? Because financial inflow means imports, we're buying more than we're selling. So our current account is the trade balance, right? Exports versus imports, right? So if we have a negative net exports, more imports than we have exports, then our financial account has to be positive, because the financial account has to balance out the current account. So financial inflow means the financial account goes up. It means imports are coming in more than exports, so the current account goes down. Does that make sense? I lost you? Marianne, Lucy, whoever else is here?
No.
Okay, so foreign investment is capital inflow. That means our financial account is going up. It means that we're importing, which means our current account, our import-export balance of trade is going down. Because once again, the current account and the financial account have to equal zero. Okay, they have to cancel each other out. Okay. Now this is one that we had earlier, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit more because I don't think I explained it very well. This idea of rational expectations. All that means is that the people are looking at objective facts to make decisions, right? That's all that is. And in our world, for our context, we're really talking about trying to project the rate of inflation. What's really going to happen, or what's going to happen with the economy. So, there's a difference between looking at looking at growth, looking at the job market, looking at looking at other main economic indicators, which would be investment, housing, looking at these objective metrics versus just how somebody feels, right? Or it's going to, I think, some kind of irrational, emotional worry, or you just think so. So when we talk about rational expectations, it's expectations based on rational, objective thinking about what we know and can measure. Okay, not what we hope. Okay, this is pretty simple. Understand how free floating exchange rates are determined. Actually, you know what would help if I just brought up this this guy right here. If we look at, let me make it larger so we can see it better. If we look at the graph for exchange rates, and I talked a lot about this in the assignment video, this exchange rate in a floating exchange market is just determined simply by supply and demand, market forces, right? Market forces. And just like the supply and the demand of any product, this is the supply and demand of currencies. In this case right here, it's dollars and yen, right? So small, I can't read it. Yen, yeah. And so that's all that is. And that is different from a a country that sets their rates. See, for years and years, and they still do to an extent, China doesn't allow their exchange rate to float. They set it to keep it from going too low. Okay, understand the relationship between real interest rates and net capital outflow. That's the one that I have this graph for. Okay, real interest rates and net capital outflow. So you don't have any graphs in your course that really shows capital outflow, and I wish you did, but you don't, because I think it would help. So when you take this in college, you'll get these more graphs, and I'm going to show you one right now. And this is simply what. Let me go up here. Net capital outflow. Yeah, this is the same thing, actually, isn't it? Yeah. So if you have interest rates, well, actually, the first thing that's going to happen is you would have a fall in savings, right? So, and this is a graph you haven't seen, so don't worry about it. But this is just the thing we want to start here with is interest rates are going to go up. Okay. When loanable funds go down, when the supply of funds, when the supply of anything, just think about this, when the supply of anything drops, the price of it's going to go up, right? So if savings drops, that means that loanable funds comes from savings. That's where banks get their money to loan out from members of the bank's savings. So when they drop, interest rates are going to go up. When interest rates go up, number two, that's going to lower capital outflow, right? You're going to move along the line of capital outflow right here. So this is not a shift. See, this is different from the other one. That's why it's kind of confusing. This is a movement along the line because of the interest rates, right? Remember the rule of any XY graph. You're going to get a movement along a line if a variable in the model changes. So in this case right here, the horizontal axis of variable is the real interest rate, or the vertical axis. Sorry, the vertical axis variable is the real interest rate. So since that went up, you've got a movement along the line here of the capital outflow curve, and that's going to cause a shift. Well, actually, now this is an actual, and this graph right here shows that is the exchange rate on the vertical axis, and we draw that down, and that shows a shift in the capital outflow curve, which is perfectly inelastic here because it's not affected at all by the exchange rate. So it's going to be whatever net exports are. So when that capital outflow shifts, remember, when capital outflow goes down, net exports go down. When capital outflow goes up, net exports go up, right? So the bottom line here is when interest rates go up, net exports go down, exchange rates go up, okay? Now, if you didn't have the graphs to look at and just thought about how that would work, if real interest rates go up, that's going to mean that there's going to be more capital inflow, okay? So net, see, this is net. See, this is why confusing. Net capital outflow means the difference between capital inflow and capital outflow changes. So when net capital outflow goes down, that could be caused by an increase in capital inflow, which makes net drop, right? So if we have higher interest rates that attracts foreign investors, because they're going to come in and invest in our like a government bonds, because now they're going to get a higher return on their investment. So that's going to draw capital into the country, which is going to mean our net exports drops. And when net exports go down, that's going to drive our exchange rate up. Okay. And obviously, if we start off over here with our interest rates dropping, then it's just the opposite, right? If interest rates went down, then it's just the opposite of what happened. So I'm trying to think how to explain. If net exports drop, that means we are importing more, which means we are supplying more of our dollars on the world market. So the graph you do have that would help would be this graph right here. What time is it getting to be? 8:40, okay. Would be this graph, I can find it, right? The money market. Where'd it go? Let me think. No, not the money, the foreign exchange right here. Yeah, right here. So if our net export, let me go back to here. So if we are experiencing capital inflow, right? Which means we're going to import more than we export, which means we're going out and buying from the world. That means we're putting our dollars out on the foreign exchange market. That means the supply of dollars is going to shift to the right, which lowers, I mean, if you see what I'm drawing there, I'm not doing it such good, but if you just picture this supply curve down here, it means our exchange rate goes down, okay? This graph over here is good, but you're not, this isn't one you're going to have to draw, but I wanted to show it to you anyway. The one you're going to, all these on this worksheet right here that I sent out to you, you're going to need to know and draw. So you can see that, once again, let me say that one more time. If our net exports go down, that means we're importing more, exporting less, which means we're buying foreign goods, which means we're having to go out into the world and supply our dollars in order to buy foreign goods. So our dollar supply shifting to the right drives down the value of our currency. Okay? Have I confused everyone completely, or do you understand that? Pretty good. Laura, are you good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. It's confusing. It is. You got to kind of think about it and look over it. Okay, I did that one. This one is easy. You can just, calculate costs. So, this is just, would be like, let me look at this. So that would be like if this one, what they're asking you here, where is this? Yeah, this would be like if $1 was worth €2, right? And you went into a restaurant and the meal was €20, it would cost $40, right? Easy? Yeah. Okay. Okay. This one right here, understand the relationship between a budget deficit, real interest rates, and net exports. Okay, so if the government goes more into a deficit, they're going to borrow money. They're going to borrow money. They're going to demand money. And when they demand money, that drives real interest rates up, right? So if real interest rates go up, if we go back to our graph right here, going up, that's going to mean net exports go down, okay? Real interest rates are going up, and that's the same. And I just explained that, so I won't explain the whole thing again. But just understand that the key here is understanding that what happens when there's a deficit. When there's a deficit, the government has to borrow money, which means they're demanding money. So money demand shifts to the right, which drives interest rates up. And the graph you would use for that is this one right here. The demand for loanable funds goes up, which would drive interest rates up, which would mean capital inflow, which would mean net exports go down. Capital inflow means more imports. Capital outflow means more exports, okay? If capital outflow goes up, net exports goes up. If capital inflow increases, net exports goes down, okay? Up, down, sideways. It's macroeconomics is kind of fun. Whew. Okay, understand the effect of an import tariff on the relative value of a country's currency. Okay, let me look at that. What are they getting at here? Understand the relative value. So if there's an import tariff, that means that we're going to buy less because it costs more, right? So if there's a tax on U.S. imports, it means we're going to buy less. See, I'm just trying to think this through using like just common sense, right? If we buy less, it means we're going to supply fewer dollars on the foreign exchange market because we're not buying as much because there's a tax that makes us not want to buy it. It's too expensive, right? So fewer dollars are being supplied in the foreign exchange market, which means that the supply curve in the foreign exchange market shifts to the left, which is why these graphs are so helpful. So if we jump back down here, if this supply curve shifts to the left, it means our relative value of our currency goes up. So if you sketch these graphs out, you'll be able to answer these a lot easier. So once again, if there's a tariff on imports, it means we're going to import less, which means we're buying less, which means we're supplying fewer dollars on the foreign exchange market, which is what we would have to do in order to import. We'd have to go out with dollars on the market. So we're supplying less, shifts our supply curve to the left, which pushes the value of our currency up, okay? Understand the relationship between interest rates in two countries and capital flow between two countries, okay? So what they're getting at here is that if you have two countries, let me just draw it like this. What time is it? Okay, I have time. So I'm going to do something really simple here, okay? We've got the country over here. Woo! We got a country over here that's shaped like a perfect circle, okay? And we got a country over here that's shaped like a perfect square. We got country square, country circle, right? And the interest rates in country's circle, stop, is 2%, right? Whoops, 2%. Sorry about that. 2%. And the interest rate in country square is 4%. Okay, over here. Now, So the question is, which way is capital going to flow, right? Well, where the interest rate's higher, where there's going to be more of a return, that's going to attract capital. So capital will flow this way, okay? So we got capital inflowing this way, all right? So from a country circle to country square, you're going to have capital flowing, where there's from the lower, because if you want to invest, you'll get more over here than you're going to get over there, right? So now, what happens when there's a capital inflow over to here? Eventually, the interest rates here are going to fall. Okay. And I'm just pausing so I can explain to you why that would be. So if there's more investment here, there is a anyway. I'll come back to that. I'm going to think about that because it's been a long night. There's what happens is they eventually equalize, but I want to tell you exactly why, so you'll understand it. If there's financial inflow coming into this country right here because they're getting 4% return, it's going to make the interest rate financial inflow means that imports go up. I'll think about it. There's a cause and effect that I just not seeing. The bottom line here is that capital is going to flow from the lower interest rate to the higher, and eventually this interest rate right here is going to drop. And this interest rate right here is going to go up. And there's a reason that I could explain, but right now my brain's not working, but that's okay. Let me go back to make sure we get this last one. Where'd it go? And this is one you can just look up. This is a really simple review right here. Okay. And so that's easy. And then you just need to do the, make sure you look at the videos and understand assignment 10. That's easy enough. Well, it's not easy, but the videos will show you all that if you weren't able to attend last night. And if you have any questions before you take the quiz, certainly send me an email. But I want to think about this. Just give me 1 minute to just think about this. Capital inflow. It helps me if I just write. See, if you just think sometimes your brain just freezes up. Capital inflow means that imports are going this way, right? So if imports are going up, it means net exports means net exports are going down, right? So if net exports are going down, trying to think, what I'm trying to get at is there a graph that shows that? That shows why interest rates go down? That would help you. And see, you don't have one single, see, in your curriculum, they don't show you any graph with net exports. And I don't know why they don't, but they don't. So they're expecting you to know that for a different reason, and the different reason is because I would just use the net export, the graph, but I want you to be able to do it with the graphs you have. The interest rates, investment demand. Okay, well, I'll think about that and I'll send out an email because I really want to be able to tell you guys why, if capital inflows are coming in, then eventually this interest rate is going to drop and this interest rate is going to rise. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Anyway, I'll figure that out. But for your purposes, just know that capital is always going to flow from the lower to the higher interest rate, and that's what you need to know. And eventually, this will go up and this will go down. So let me just draw it. This is going to eventually go up, and this is going to go down as a capital flows. I just wish I could give you a better reason why, because I don't like just saying just that's it. I mean, I like knowing exactly why that's happening, but I will think about that and get back to you. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about anything before we go? I'm going to do about 3 sessions on the for the final exam study guide. Marianne, you look like you're just having so much fun. Hi.
Yep. Hi.
Anyway, I'm going to stop the recording. We don't need to record anymore.